All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Let me just check if the audio is perfectly fine. All right. Hope everyone's having a great day today. Fantastic as always. I have I have perfected the stream setup, I believe. So we should be solid for today. I got the content on the left side for you to be distracted with, and on the right side will be the content for those that are able to listen, and that's perfectly fine, and that's exciting. That's the good part. That's the cool stuff. So, um, before I begin, actually for this week, right? For this week, I intend to just be quite what's the term? To be quite flexible. Actually, I want to be quite flexible with what I want to cover for these few sessions. Mostly because um I have a lot of old lectures which I've made over the past years. I mean, some go as far as back until like 2017, of course, but most of them are in the period of the pandemic, which was 2020, 2019, 2021. And also 2022 and 2023, when I also became more active in with my teaching. And so I'd like to use a lot of these live streams as practice to just get a little bit better on refreshing some of this content that I've made from before, so I could just update it, and also just to do it to be able to help everyone else in the process. So I guess we could start off first with just a show of hands from the squad. Hello to Sunset Tequila, to Abdul. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing wonderful today. Um, I do intend to first ask you, are there any outstanding questions, any immediate questions that you guys have been struggling with? How's life? How's debate been for you guys? Hope it's been fun. Hope it's been a fulfilling activity. Haven't been able to upload lots of videos recently, mostly because, well, I was taking a break. I was on vacation. I was still doing some personal private classes, but that can also get pretty tiring from time to time. So I don't really have that much time to like play games. So I spend most of my time just reading books, teaching, and then going on vacation, and then resting. And then recently I was like focused on um trying out writing, which was pretty fun as well. I think, especially in preparation for majors that are coming up, I'm trying to be a little bit more intentional with, like writing out my matter files, trying to review some of the current issues and predict some motions that might come up, or even make motions for the tournaments that I've been adjcaring. I've been experimenting with a couple of motions recently. Like if you were at Diliman pre-UADC last weekend, which was just yesterday, I like some of the motions that we came up there. So that'll be pretty nice to also go over if we have some time. And I'll put this volume a little bit down. Good lord, that is quite loud. Well, let's just quiet this down. I think, like, it's there's lots of opportunities to go over some content. But for today, I guess I'll start off this session with a discussion on democracy. I think this will actually be quite interesting. I think this is a very fun lecture. To the extent in which it's probably quite relevant with how lots of very, very good debaters nowadays try and explain democracy, because it's a very common, it's quite indeed a very common debate topic in terms of its pragmatic elements and its principled elements, which we'll also cover on in this video as well. And so I think that's going to be quite exciting. Um, and I also want to just use this opportunity to also highlight those some of those important concepts that I think would be nice. All right, let's get right into it. So let's title this one as a democracy lecture. What day is it today? May 20, 2024. Democracy. related to probably some discussions on um liberal democracy, political philosophy, and all of that. And before I begin to discuss democracy, I think it would be helpful to make this topic specifically about framing democracy in debates, right? As you might know from my videos, the concept of framing is the process of explaining the concrete and relevant implications of an argument, or essentially why is your argument true and why is it relevant, right? So if I were to apply this concept of framing to our understanding of democracy, right? What we are also asking, right, with framing democracy is the question of why is your conception of democracy true and why is your conception of democracy relevant? I hope this makes sense. This is quite an important question because, of course, there are conflicting understandings of democracy. I'm not even talking about like the understanding of different types of government. That's not necessarily what I'm explaining here, right? What I'm explaining here is that your explanation, your justification for why an election is a representation of a deeper principled obligation that the state has to individuals, right? I hope we're on the same track here. When we're saying that democracy is about this relationship and that elections is a manifestation of our fulfillment of this principle, then of course, what is the underlying question beneath all of this? The underlying question is, why is your conception of democracy based on this explanation? Why is it true? And why is it relevant? Right? Not just in a vacuum, right? But it's also why is it more so true compared to how another team might explain the conception of democracy or the conception of what the public interest is or what the state is. So I will probably start off first by maybe it would be helpful to, rather than starting with the usual discussion of, oh, let's talk about what the state and people are, right? Like the state, it is the amalgamation of preferences of different individuals in society, and people, as independent from the state, are human living beings that have those changing preferences that are often surveyed by that same state. So to the extent that there is a difference between what the state and the people are, right? That's how people usually might introduce this discussion. You'll ask yourself, oh, given that the people, right, like this generation is not necessarily wholly representative of the state, right? The state is an amalgamation of preferences of current and future generations, or even the interest of what it means to be part of this people, the citizens of this nation, and the obligations that it also purports itself to also represent. We also make this distinction. Philosophical discussions have always made this distinction quite as explicit as could be possible, because we know that humans are complex, that people vote differently, people vote in different ways, and that might be good or bad for different reasons, blah, 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 right? And of course, we know that in the same way that people are complex, we also know that states, or maybe a simplistic representation of government, could also be complex as well, right? So that's also worth consideration, quite important consideration as well in this context. Because of course we know that whatever the prime minister does or whatever a president does, that doesn't necessarily represent what a state will always want to do, nor is a state only represented by its leaders. And nor should a government only be represented by, by people, which is a counterintuitive concept that we also know as well. So again, rather than going into this rabbit hole of the state and its people, right? That's why I will elect to currently put this in a different format so that we are on the same page that this is not important at the moment for us to discuss in this specific way. I'll strike it through, right? What I do hope to discuss here instead is probably starting by observing the different institutions of democracy, and then applying it directly into the debates, and then we will probably extract our understanding of democracy from the way that we create our arguments, which I say might sound commonsensical, and it might sound so pedestrian, but that's how people think. That's not a bad way of thinking. It is quite a very nice and advanced way of deeper contemplation to understand why we argue the way we argue, and interrogating our own understanding of what our intuitions are and what seems to be important based on how we explain things, right? So again, the questions that we might be asking along the way while we are talking about these things would be the following, right? We will ask the question of, why is democracy important? Which is a question of, what are our internal value systems as a society? What are the challenges, threats to democracy? Thereby, given the value systems that we establish, what are the inherent vulnerabilities of democracy with respect to the creation of our institutions? And that is why it is inseparable from the question of what are the institutions of democracy, right? Which are, of course, a question of democratic systems. And so for this lecture, I think it might be helpful. I think it would be very, very nice for us to start off with a very, 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 very basic, understanding of our intuitions on democracy, right? I'll give this argument first. I'll give this motion. This is a classic motion from, I saw it most popularly in ABP 2019. I probably also discussed this in one of my videos, but I want to discuss it at length from a different perspective now. If the motion was this House would hold elections during times of crisis, or like, let's say the motion was a bit, specifically worded as, in times of crisis, a time of crisis would trigger an election, right? Of course, it's the same motion, either way. So let's say this was the motion. This House would hold elections during times of crisis. And if you were confronted by this motion, how would you typically be expected to explain democracy? Or what is your intuition when you say that, you know what, we should have an election and whatever? What is the moral, principled intuition for why an individuals have a right to vote again during a crisis, even if, again, I want to specify the question, why does the public have a right to participate in an election even if it undermines the existing legitimacy of the currently elected government? If you don't start your questioning process by asking the question in this specific way, then you will get very lost, right? If you started, for example, with the argument of, like maybe you might make the argument that people have a right to vote because the context has changed substantially. Right? Let's say you were making this argument, and then you just explained that it's better and more updated for us to get the preferences of the public right now. Right? I mean, this is a sensible argument. It's a fantastic argument. It's a very commonsensical argument. It's very, very basic at its core. And I think a lot of people will be persuaded by this. And I love this. But I don't think it's as nuanced and as advanced yet. Because what is the underlying principled implication of this statement? Right? The underlying implication of this statement is that, you know what? Maybe we should just have an election every single day. Let's have an election every single day. Maybe every single week. Every single month. Maybe it's not even during a time of crisis. Maybe we'll just have it all the time. And of course, you could give some reasons to explain, we don't know if tomorrow is going to be the same as today. We don't know whether the next week is going to be the same as this week. We don't know whether the month is going to be the same as the next month, and whatever. And so to the extent we do not know what the world will look like in the next few years, then therefore, we should have votes and elections as small as possible and as closest and approximate as possible. We'll just have an election every single minute, every single day, and get every preference all the time. Maybe we don't need a government. Maybe we don't need a government at all, right? That's a fantastic way of explaining democracy, right? Maybe it might be persuasive for some people, but it's kind of like weird, right? Of course, it's not like, it doesn't like, I don't buy that. I don't buy that, like, we should have an election every single day. Like, some people might say, maybe there's a practical reason for why that should happen, but maybe there's a more intuitive reason, which is that, maybe elections need to have a stable government and have a sustained period of governance so they can employ and enact its campaign promises as policy, right? So now guys, what have we done? What have we done here? What we have done here so far is that we have expanded our conception of democracy from merely one of, it's just about the time, about the preferences, about people being surveyed now and being surveyed today. But it is more so also equally about how it trades off against the need for a stable government and the need for sustained period of governance during this period or during a period of time. And so, right, again, if I started in the opposite way, right? Like, opposition makes the argument, you know what, we shouldn't have an election because we need to have a government that continues itself, right? Opposition makes that argument, right? If we took that principle to the extreme and we understood what the logic behind it was, then it might just argue for dictatorship, right? Like, if there was a benevolent dictator, maybe that might be good because at least that's a stable government and maybe that's going to be effective for everyone. But government side, to some extent, democracy means that, you know what, maybe it's a bit too much. Maybe benevolent dictatorship is a bit too much. Maybe we should have an election. Maybe we should survey some preferences. Maybe 6 years, maybe 4 years. Let's take some time, right? Maybe let's put a period. Let's put a full stop to that. So now, the question is becoming a little bit difficult, no? Becoming a little bit difficult. Which is why we ask this question. Why does the public have a right to participate in an election, even if it undermines the existing legitimacy of the currently elected government? And here, of course, you can pause the video, or you can contemplate on your own, or you can just do it and reflect, or you could ride along and listen. What you could say now is that a period of crisis massively changes the way in which people organize their preferences, thereby undermining the campaign promises and policies that the existing government were elected to employ. And so, to the extent that they were democratically elected as well, continued governance under them is unjustified because people have changed and the need for another government may be necessary. And so what we have done here is that we've specified our explanation. It doesn't mean that we have like abandoned our previous question, right? It doesn't mean we have abandoned it. I'm sure you know that, oh, by the way, I could have used this earlier. I could have used this earlier over here. Maybe I could just insert it to that argument, right? But if you are too excited, and if you're too brash, and then you approach this this motion with this particular argument immediately, then you undermine the trade-off that you want to make. You undermine the specific way in which your argument could respond to the other principle of op. Thereby, you also fail at framing. And then now what is our next step here? What is our next step here? Our next step here is to ask, well, what does it mean to have an election? What does it mean to have expectations? What does it mean to have preferences? And what does it mean for a crisis to massively take away the opportunities of individuals to otherwise hold their government accountable? Now, I want to take a pause here, right? We're getting into very, very difficult territory. I'm not giving you guys all the answers, of course. You can do however you want, do your own argument. You can process it however you want to try. But here's another dilemma I want to insert. Another dilemma. Again, a lecture on democracy, right? Opposition goes up, and they try and contest your principle, right? They say, no, if we hold an election during a time of crisis, then you will be overwhelmed by the panic and the anxiety of that crisis, and thereby this generation will undermine all future generations irreparably because of the populist sentiments of this administration. This is a fantastic argument, by the way. This is an excellent argument from opposition. This is a brilliant argument from opposition. Opposition, right? I want you to understand, right? This is a pragmatic argument. Of course, it's a pragmatic argument. But do you understand the principled element of this pragmatic argument? Within opposition's argument, right? They say, oh, you're gonna be anxious, you're gonna be anxiety induced, right? You're gonna be panicking. And that's not only bad for government, right? It doesn't only, like, opposition could make the argument it incapacitates the government. But it's not only that, right? It's that because your policies are also focused on spending to solve the crisis, or maybe even to like make radical transformative changes during this specific crisis, that might incapacitate future generations in a very, very terrible way, and then they could argue all the reasons as to why populism is bad. And I hope you guys are understanding here that you know, there's an amazing element that, like, the majority outweighs the minority, right? And that could be quite a very, very, very bad way, like a very, very bad vulnerability of democracy, right? And then so I ask you one more time. What is democracy? What is democracy? Why is it justified to have a plurality for a majority to decide elections? Right? Why do we do this? Why do we do this? What is the reason? How can we improve our argument in order to respond to this specific case? Again, I'll pause. I'll pause here. You can pause the video here. I'll take a sip of water, and we can process this together. But please take a moment to think. Please take a moment to think. How many minutes do we have in this? Oh, we have like a solid 50 more minutes in this video, in this Minecraft video. That's quite nice. That's quite nice. Should be nice. Should be all good. How's everyone doing? Everyone fine? Does everyone get the current vibe? Hope the exercise is quite interesting. I enjoy this one. I enjoy this one in particular. It's very, very fun. Very, very inducing. I don't think this guy in particular is that good at parkour, but I think it's quite nice. I think it's fantastic. I love it. I love the quality. I love the shaders. It gets it right into the principle of it all. The principle. The justification. The brilliance. The meaning. Alright. Now that you've all paused, now that you've all taken your own sips of water, here's how I would answer. I would answer this by saying that, well, maybe democracy is about undermining future generations in irreparable ways. Because to the extent that this would otherwise entail that you would be held hostage in the comparative to never make a change at all, then you would argue that this is more so unjust because of the suffering that will be experienced today, because of existing preferences that are violated today, and because of how severe a crisis can also create those very same inequalities today, right? That's fantastic. And now you've just revealed it. You revealed the insane way to make the argument. You've revealed the way to make the argument that crisis is an opportunity for inequalities to be exacerbated, and that is why government intervention through the public vote is necessary. And then therefore this means that the underlying principle of democracy is that we always defer to the most approximate preferences and suffering that is experienced by people today, by a crisis today, because of how incapacitating it can be to their autonomy more so. This is weighing, guys. This is framing. This is framing democracy. We have now phrased our argument in a way that makes it specifically responsive to ops potential clash, which is on the basis of future generations. We argue no. We argue today this generation is already held incapacitated by this hesitancy, by the inequality created by crisis, and of course, that is why we need to defer to their preferences now. And that is what democracy is about. That is why we must hold elections now rather than later. I love this. I think this is a fantastic explanation. I think that for now, of course, still not a perfect argument. For now, we've done our duty. I'm very happy to frame in this particular way. I'll move on to the next part. Let's go on to another motion. Oh, sorry. So now, I have now answered the question. Why must democracy also allow for the possibility of populism? And then this would be your answer. And of course, I'm sure in multiple motions, like even during the 2016 era, when multiple populist leaders came into power, and even until today, this is quite a relevant discussion. And this is how we approach different topics like this. And that is fantastic. I love that. I think that is an extensive discussion on democracy and what it means for the public. Let's move on to another question. I do want to talk about the institutions of democracy, and then we allow ourselves to go and continue to interrogate what it means, what it represents, in underlying principles of that, right? So for example, let's take the motion of let's take this motion. This house believes that rules that disallow party hopping do more harm than good. Let's do that motion. I'm sure you guys have seen this motion before. This is a fantastic motion. It's quite I wouldn't say it's like more common today. It's always been a very classic one. There have been many instances over the past years, even in both developed and developing countries, in which party hopping happens. But you could argue that party hopping happens more so in weak democracies, whatever weak or whatever definition of weak you may use. And by the way, I do think this is quite an interesting discussion, only because now we go into the realm of those debates of like, oh, we should have a two-party system. Oh, we should have what do you call that? We should have a federal government, or we should have a more decentralized political party system. We should have like a party for XYZ, etc., etc. We should create a new party and all of that stuff. And of course, you know, parties, to the extent that they compete for power in a democracy, also have to represent the needs of their own constituents. And to the extent that they represent the needs of their own constituents, in theory, they are also expected to create policy positions that adjust and cater to those same preferences, right? Like they commit to those preferences. They create compromises with other individuals. So there's a dynamic inherent to a political party, right? There is the dynamic of consensus building, right, in a democracy, versus right, commitment to preferences and ideology, right? This is when we go into governance, right? Right? Like if I ask you the question, why the hell do we have a constitution? Why do we have a constitution? Why can't we just make every law all the time, right? What are the arguments in favor of or against that? One argument is that, we need the constitution so that it supersedes the possibility of existing governments to undermine the basic fundamental rights of individual citizens, or also quite important, right? To say that even if it might be the preference of the public to abandon something, right? It might not necessarily be in line with the values of that democracy, or the underlying values of democracy. And so there is the implicit explanation that, political parties can be flawed, and thereby not only political parties can be flawed, or that politicians can be flawed, but it's also that people can be flawed as well. So now I ask you again, what the hell is democracy? What does that mean? Does it mean that we should only have one static constitution? Does it mean that we should always change political parties? Does it mean that if one political party wins, and that they have an undue advantage in the next election, does it mean that they should win again? Or that they should be penalized for this existing incumbent advantage? Why can't we just have Joe Biden be president for all the next years until he's dead? I don't know, right? Why can't they just be like the Pope? And so, right? I hope you guys are understanding that this explanation on democracy is quite indeed like you have to be very specific with the questions that you are asking. So now I ask you this: if you were in this motion, rules that disallow party hopping do more harm than good, right, and you want to make the argument that rules that disallow party hopping violate democracy, it's quite a big ask. I will be honest, because Op's gonna make the argument that party hopping is not genuine, and it undermines democratic systems because party hopping creates super majorities and possibly authoritarian governments that go unchecked, right? Which is likely the case. It's quite a fantastic argument. I love this. It's a very nice one. What is the implicit argument within OP, right? The implicit principle, the implicit democratic principle is that supermajorities undermine democracy because they do not necessarily represent the ideologies of the public which these parties were supposed to represent. And I'll be completely honest with you. At Gov, this argument is quite easy to respond to, right? I hope you guys are already finding the vulnerability of this argument, that now you're just like, oh my lord, maybe these underlying political pressures were the result and were the consequence of better compromises that would have otherwise allowed some people to get into power rather than not getting into power at all. And that is why coalition building is better and in the interest of the public. Because the process of disallowing party hopping doesn't mean that everyone retains those preferences, but you weaken all political parties in the long run. And maybe that might be worse. And so, what is the hardline argument for Gov? What is the hardline argument for Gov? The hardline argument for Gov simply is supermajorities are a good representation of the democratic will and of the need for continued governance and minimum representation from party members. And I love that. I think that's fantastic. I think that explaining this is a more realistic and pragmatic way, no pun intended, it's a pragmatic way of fulfilling your principle. It's quite an insane way to be able to explain what it means for the public to be involved. That to do otherwise would be to allow these rules to undermine existing political parties, to weaken them, and to allow sole members to win from dominant parties to win without the opportunity for others to coalesce and coordinate with them in government. I only say this because these are very, very advanced concepts. Of course, if you guys watch my videos, I also talk about the concept of a true comparative a lot. I've also employed it in this implicit example as well. And I've also, hopefully, also demonstrated what democracy is too in this context. Wow! That is a great sunset. That is an insane sunset. Look at that. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Sorry, I just got distracted. That looks really nice. That looks really good. I should really play Minecraft again. But that looks really nice. Not gonna lie. It's effective. Not gonna lie, I think this is effective. Even I get, honestly, even as a teacher, by the way, I also get distracted, and I also get bored while I'm giving a lecture. So it's quite nice. It's quite nice to also have something that distracts me while I am also, watching as well. Hello everyone. Let me just check the chat. I haven't checked the chat in a while. Hello everyone. Nice to see you all. Who's there right now? Hello to Saud. Hello to Rachel. Hello to Abdul again. Oh my, I apologize. I cannot read your Japanese name. But hello, nice to see you. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Hello, Eric. Is this how we cater towards the kids? Yes. Yes, this is how we cater towards the kids. And this is how we also cater to old people. You know? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe this is also a great way to teach all of the ignorant and outdated and not in touch people of this world, and try to merge our understanding, right? Like, you know, everyone thinks that the youth of debate are so naive and so dumb, whereas everyone also sometimes thinks that the old people were all so so basic. But really, there's wisdom. There's wisdom everywhere. There's wisdom in all of these things. It is fantastic. It is fantastic. It is fantastic. And I love that. I love that. If you cannot focus on the lecture because of the Minecraft, then that means that I am doing my job. That means we have succeeded. That means we have succeeded in this process. What time is it now? Oh, it's 2:50. Wow. Okay. All right. I will end this soon. I'm going to go on to the last portion of this lecture. There's just one other part that I also want to discuss. It's quite another. Yeah, no, this is the advanced one that I want to give. Now let's wrap up this brief discussion. But by going on to hello Ryusei, nice to see you. Hope you're having a great day, Ryusei. Yeah, you enjoy. You take care. Hope the Kansai region is doing great. All right, let's do this, guys. Let's do this. So I did this in one of my videos, but I want to do it again for the purposes of this framing lecture, right? Let's say this house believes that reelection should absolve a corrupt public official from criminal liability. Of course, I'm sure a lot of my everyone around the world, actually, I'm not even gonna like shout out any country. Every country around the world has had this in some form or in some capacity, whether it is in a strong democracy, whether it's in a weak democracy. And so we ask the question again: how can we phrase our question specifically? With respect to why should we allow re-election to absolve a corrupt public official? Now, if you were too excited and that you just go in into the motion, you just try and like make an argument out of the top of your head, then you might make the argument which is that maybe the people want them back in power so badly, right? Of course, that is fantastic, right? You might even run like an argument like what is this? The term that I watched from when I was watching this in the LSIV final many years back. This is all the way back to, I'm pretty sure it's 2017 or 2016. All the way back then when I was still in high school. The term that was used, and this is also a popular term that you can also search up, is, it's like, vox populi, vox dei, right? This is the term that Glenn and Leloy did when they were in OG for this particular round. And so, right, they were like, vox populi, vox dei. Their argument was that in a context, in the media, in the public sentiment, where there is so many forces that are already saying that this official is evil, that they are corrupt, that they have been indicted for corruption, they have been criminalized for corruption, then Gov's argument was, oh, you know what? If the public says that they are good, then we should believe the public. Right? And of course, I love that argument. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. It's amazing. It was an amazing speech. I loved it. But of course, right? I mean, if we were to be a little bit more specific, and if we were to ask and demand for some implicit principle to try and ask and understand what is being asked under this, right? We know that premised claim might not always be true, and thereby the principle might not always apply, right? Op could give many reasons to explain that, oh, there are so many ways in which this information today can undermine the public sentiment. Yeah, this is the, I'm sure everyone knows this debate, right? Like, this is the debate on, oh, if people are informed by propaganda and disinformation online, right? Hello, Matthew Garcia. Hope you're having a great day. If people are informed in this specific way by disinformation online, right? Then, to the extent that this is a representation of a political preference, does it mean that we should deny their vote? Or does it mean that we should have denied them of information? Right? Because, of course, representing all of Trump voters or Duterte voters or Marcos voters or whatever as wholly motivated by this information is not effective or meaningful for your argument, right? That's not going to be productive for your argument, right? Whether or not it is true. Because obviously, guys, it's not likely true, right? They're not all dumb. And so, right? While I agree this op argument is amazing, I still, and that there are flaws within it, I also think that it's quite important that we also try and respond to this in quite a charitable way too, right? So how can we expand the principle of Vox Populi Vox Dei in order for us to respond to the disinformation point? Why would we say that reelection should absolve corrupt public official from criminal liability? And what is the more specific question that we are asking and demanding from here? And here is the part where you pause the video, you can take a sip of water, you can think on your own or whatever. But let me give the answer so that I don't take more time from individuals. The answer I would give most definitively is to ask the question of, well, why should public sentiments and trust even if these are strong emotions that are based on personality politics, why should they override the criminal justice system? And do you guys realize how insane this argument is? How insane this question is? Because we have unpacked the deeper principle of this debate. The deeper principle is that when a politician was in violation of, was caught in corruption and imprisoned, then this was a clear violation of democracy, right? It was a clear violation of democracy. They were the primary victims because they stole from public funds, which again, taxpayer money is representation of the money, efforts, and the lives and preferences of individuals, right? That is their control, that is their autonomy, blah, 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 right? And so, if that same public, right, was overwhelmed with forgiveness and emotion and the need to vote in this official, then by all means, this is justified. Right? That's important. That's important. That's fantastic. I love that. I think, I think this is an easier question. Sorry, not an easier question. It is a more difficult question, but it is the question that makes it more specific. It makes it more brilliant, more directed. Like this is the one that wins you the debate, right? Not just saying like, oh, the public is great, the public is awesome, or that the public is dumb, the public is irrational, right? That's not the debate. It's not the debate. That leads you down the rabbit hole of more and more discussions that don't have the same productive flavor. And then now I ask you again, I ask you guys again, what is democracy? What is democracy? What does it mean? What does it mean to be a democratic system? And so now the question is about, oh, what is reparation? What is retribution? What does it mean for people to, commit harm or betray the public? And these are more specific questions that you can answer in your speeches. And I'm very happy. I'm very happy to explain that part of the debate a little bit more, right? Because now you can be like, oh, it's about victims. Who are the victims? The victims are the poor. Oh, so that means that we should care about the preferences of the poor more? What about the votes of the rich and the wealthy who are not necessarily victims of corruption to the same extent? And now we've realized that, oh my lord, now the debate is a little bit more complicated than I initially thought it was, right? And I like that. I think that's the beauty of democracy debates, because it's not only a debate on public dumb or smart, or like whether populism is good or bad, right? But it's about the question of, well, what are the values of the state? How do we adjudicate the trade-offs that you... Oh my god, he nearly fell down. Oh my god, he's falling down a lot. Oh, good lord. Sorry, I got distracted. Hey, you go and like, you adjudicate those differences that are inherent in the public side of it too. All right, hope that makes sense, guys. That should be fine. Okay, all right. I'm done. I'm done for today. That's pretty much all I wanted to say for today. I could lecture on for hours, but we're gonna have more days like this over the next week. That's just 1 hour. I don't want to like take too much time from anyone. So thank you for attending. You can go and ask your questions if you want. If you have any questions, I'll feel free to answer them. Doesn't have to be related to this lecture. I'm just chilling around. I'm just gonna check my schedule. What else do I have to for today? Okay. I might play some games. But yeah. I probably will not share the document. You can just rewatch the VOD. You can rewatch the VOD. Thank you, Rance. Thank you, Abdul. Thank you, blah 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 blah. Hope you're having a great day. Nice to see you, Gab. Enjoy. Take care. W. I'm gonna play the music now so that people can like feel a little bit more connected. Alright, we're chilling. We're chilling. Any questions, anyone? Any questions? Any questions? Super majorities are just like large groups of parties. Ooh, democracy like books? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't really... trying to remember. There's a really nice book that I like. Have you read? You should read. What's this guy's name? Wow, this music is going a bit too hard. Let's do another one. Alright, you know what? You should read. I still think this is a nice book. How to Rig an Election. How to Rig an Election by Brian Klaas. That's really nice. It's not gonna be about the principle per se, but it gives you a lot of examples that you can think about. I like that a lot more. Especially for your learning in debate. That's what I'd recommend for you. So it's How to Rig an Election by Brian Klaas. Yeah. I'll type it on the chat. Rig an Election by Brian Klaas. if a victim wants to forgive someone, state can still hold the criminal accountable because they may harm others or future generations. Well, yeah, no, I agree with you, Abdul. That's a fantastic argument. Yeah, like, you know, if a victim wants to forgive them, then maybe it might harm other people. And maybe that might be a reason for you not to allow re-election. But of course, that goes into the dilemma of like, oh, does it mean we should be a hesitant government? When should we stop? Does that mean that we will never ever be forgiving, right? That's another question, right? That's another good one. My thoughts about Western liberal democracy and how they differ from typical democracy. They differ from democracy because they are Western and they are liberal. Is what is purported. I don't have any deeper opinion on that than that. I think like there's really nice books online about the process of exporting Western liberal democracy that has been employed by the West through the Western liberal institutions like the Bretton Woods institutions. And of course, the argument of many books around the world is that the process of exporting liberal democracy has also led to more dictatorships around the world because of the way in which the governments of the West have done it. Through financial aid or through financial pressure or through undermining the existing elections of many governments around the world as well. So that's one way I might explain. That's one thing that you might want to read up a little bit more. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty solid. Thanks guys. We're done. We're done for today. Well, what can I do? What am I gonna do now? Let's play some chess. I'm gonna play some chess, and then I'm gonna end the stream afterwards. And then you guys can start chilling. I'm gonna go and chill around for a bit while everyone's still here. But you can all feel free to leave. Thanks guys for having a great day. Thank you for joining me. You can also give me recommendations on what you want me to talk about for the next few days. That'll also be solid. Let's go and win a game. Oh no, let's do some puzzles. Bye-bye. Okay, like this. Is it like this? And then like this? And then like this. Nice! What? Is it just... Oh. Okay. Nice! How to achieve the transition from a 77 to 79 bracket to a higher bracket next lecture. Nice. Maybe I'll think about that. I don't think it's an easy answer to that though. I think the easiest answer to that is that you have to just you have to chill. You have to be patient. Judges are too random. Therefore, focus more on wins. Oh my god, why is it gonna make me auto-resign? Oh my god, it's a 1-minute game. I forgot. Oh no, I'm getting checkmated. I lost. What am I doing? I'm ending stream now. There's a question. Can you do ads if you don't mind? I'll be good luck, have fun, enjoy. Yeah, maybe I'll do an ads lecture. Maybe I might do that. I'll think about it. Alright, thanks buddy. Bye-bye. We're done for today. Let's end. Bye-bye.